Let me put you on game. Don't listen to people who lose or you'll do the same. Stop talking to people who don't give a f*** what you saying. Stop spending your money on weed, go hop on a plane. Stop pointing the finger.
Guys, welcome back to another episode of the Pursuit of Wealth podcast. Today we have a returning guest, Mr. Michael Perry himself, the co-founder of the Perry Group here in Salt Lake City, Utah, who runs the number one team, doing $500 million in transaction volume, 800 transactions last year, on pace to do 700 plus this year in a 30% downward market. So we want to get into what are you guys doing as a team to be successful? Where do you see the market going? What do you see agents struggling with? And then maybe talk a little bit about the teams that you've brought over to Real in the last few months.
Let's do it. Where are we starting?
We're starting with your team. Where's your team been this last year in a downward market? You guys are down 30% in Salt Lake, right? Transaction count.
Ish, yeah.
And you guys aren't down 30% as a team. What are you guys doing differently?
It's funny. Our quarter one was horrific. We were, I think, more than 30%.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we were behind Utah trends. I mean, disaster, especially from a team who has literally doubled production every year.
Yeah.
It was it was a good 3-year ride. So quarter one, really bad. Quarter 2, 3 on fire. Quarter 4 will probably be average. And I think just resetting from a market that, I talk to my friends, it's real estate. You're going back to how you did real estate in 2018, 2019. Mm-hmm. It is so much different than what we've been used to the past 3 years.
Were you guys questioning your team Q1?
I think not questioning, but being vulnerable, having no idea how to train or give direction. Because it was answer your Zillow call, follow up, you'll get referrals from that. And I think the biggest thing I tell people, at least in my world, referrals are kind of gone. Mm-hmm. So we love online leads. We love Zillow, but the average person is not buying a house right now. And the average person with money isn't buying a house either. Yeah. So for us, it's turned into simply an at-bat game on how many people can you meet to sell one house at a time.
Yeah. And it's different now. I think, like you said, probably Zillow and online leads are more valuable now because your average Joe isn't going to have their aunt or uncle or cousin buy. So you got to find the motivated buyers and where the motivated buyers at.
Yeah.
Zillow's got that world pretty much on lock.
Pretty dialed.
If you're searching for a home, you're typically searching through Zillow or Trulia. So I think your guys' playing to Zillow is actually playing off better right now, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And from questioning your team, production-wise in the Q1, I'm not questioning it, but some teams that have started in the last 3 years that aren't pivoting and they're struggling this year, they're probably is what we built real? Is it sustainable?
That's super interesting. And I didn't even think about this. For us, it wasn't. And truly transparent, we were the number one team at Real Broker. We were one of the top teams in the country, and we were profitable, but not what you would think of the number one team and the stats.
Yeah.
And we just got around to March. We did a major split change that we actually think is aggressive and beneficial to agents. But it was if in the craziest real estate market in history, we didn't feel like we struck gold on the financial piece, we're doing it wrong. And that sucked to think hey, we are not as cool as we thought we were these past couple of years.
Yeah, but you guys pivoted quickly. Obviously, you had Q2, Q3, the biggest quarters for the year. Why were those bigger? What did you guys do differently Q2 and Q3?
We didn't panic, which I think is huge. So we didn't do a ton different, but I think we changed our coaching structure, we changed our split model, and then we really hammered to agents that real estate is so much harder right now. So go back to the basics. And I know that's what everybody's hearing. I'm trying to give an example, but it's kind of just getting their head, rattling them and saying real estate really sucks right now.
Yeah.
And it really could for a couple more years, and not even trying to trick them that this is opportunity time. It's this is simply, if you can survive and get out of it, you're probably going to do really well. but it's a really hard time. And I think just like giving them that mindset to where it's like, okay, this is not the job I got into.
Yeah. It's hard as a leader of a team, because you don't want to be the leader that's casting fear. And, usually we're like projecting hope and optimism, but you also got to prepare your house for winter. Like you got to prepare your agents for winter. And it's like having that message of things are going to be harder. Like this is going to be, the next 6 months might be the hardest time in real estate. Totally. And it could be the hardest time for you in real estate. Be prepared for that. But also knowing that there's always, spring always comes after winter. Yeah. So if we go through winter, there will be a spring. If you can make it to spring, you're going to reap the rewards of that. Because I truly do think, I'm like, however long this takes, whenever we do go back up, we're going to see it'll be the most beneficial time to be in real estate.
100%.
Because you're going to get that huge buyer demand. But it's like, now it's just going to be a question of who can outlast the winner. Yeah. So,
and I think it's to that statement. You see, it's funny because I'm going to go after my dad here, but he posted that reel where it's like 20,000 people driving a motorcycle when rates come down to 6%. That's what the housing market's going to look like. Yeah. Yes, I agree. The point behind that, or on top of that, is the feds know that. So why would they do that?
Correct.
That quickly.
Correct.
And I think whether it's the marathon agents running and when rates drop to 6, 5.5, 5, 4.5, yes, that will happen. So that probably won't happen anytime soon, because the government does not want prices going up again, how they have. And I think I don't know if that's a really negative or positive, but it's truth, and you can take it however you want it.
Yeah. I think we're going to see what, as long as the feds can't be influenced by outside factors that makes them want to.
Political, baby.
Yeah. As long as they don't, and that's going to be a test, is like, because the Fed knows what's going to happen. Oh. So if they do it, we know that they don't care as much about that, and they care about whatever else is influencing them to do that, So it's going to be interesting to see who's going to be able to hold out. But I think you're absolutely right. We pitched that, next year's an election year, and but who knows what the Fed's actually going to do? Yeah. We don't know that just because it's an election year. It's like everybody's like, well, they always try to prop up the economy to make things look good for the election year, but they know how bad things could get if they lower rates.
Yeah. And we're seeing some things we've never seen before. Yeah. And I think you go into the NAR lawsuit, which I think is absolutely crazy. But the more you talk to...
Crazy in the legitimacy of it? Or...
I think the shock of it, I'm actually for it. I think it needed to happen. How it's being communicated, I think is wrong. The attack on agents, I think is wrong. But I think there's some fundamental issues on how real estate is done. Yeah. But I think why it will stick is affordability. And people cannot buy houses anymore at the ease they used to. And the government cares about that. And they never have before. Yeah. And so it's just things like that where it's like, I don't know what real estate has in store, but there will be opportunity.
Yeah. Because it's the American dream, to buy a home. And so, and I feel like, there's so much value to our economy from home sales. So they don't want to take away the ease and opportunity that most people have to purchase a home. Like in other countries, it's just not as common to buy a home. No. And I think we lose that. We lose sight of that as Americans. We're just like, yeah, it's just normal for you to buy a home fresh out of high school on a minimum wage job. And now it's like, that's actually not the case anymore. It's like, I think as a household, you need to be making like 6 figures to afford a home on average throughout the country. And so we're losing that. Everybody can just go out and get the American dream and be a homeowner. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are. I think in the next 10 years, like we're probably, unless there's a market correction, which there'd have to be a catalyst for that. I don't know if we get an increased supply. We can't fix supply super quick. So I think that for the next short term, like we're going to probably be a renter economy where a lot of people are just going to have to rent. Yeah. Cause you got big players in the game now. You got, Blackstone and, big, equity firms that are buying up single family homes because they want to be in that rental market where single family residential real estate used to be the mom and pop investors, 100%. Which they're not anymore because a lot of those big investors are moving out of commercial and going into single family, and they don't need it to cash flow.
No.
Like they just need it to not lose money.
Yeah, taxes, all that.
Yeah, and then they get to depreciate it and do all that, and then they know over a 30-year period that property is going to go up in value.
Yeah.
So they can play the long game where a lot of investors can't. So I'm curious to see how, if that continues as a trend and big money continues going to the single family home market and we're just not able to build fast enough. This goes into more like political things, but the whole new world order of they will own nothing and be happy,
Yeah.
If that's the case, like, I don't know if my kids will be able to afford a home.
Your kids will be.
But like as a parent, you're almost like, man, should I, one of my new goals is like, I want to make sure however many kids we have a house for them, and that can be their college as they get a house that cash flows and they can do whatever they want. But that way they at least have a home when they, need a home for their family and they can't afford it. I don't know where things go with the real estate market, but what are your thoughts?
Confused and concerned. I'm on the side of, I think the government generally has best interest, and I think they will control what they need to allow that American dream to be a thing. I do believe that. What I'm confused about is the renter markets were only super pricey coastal markets, or like Park City.
Yeah.
But it was the LAs, the New Yorks, to where it made sense. It is one of the best places to live in the world. There's Hollywood, there's ocean, there's climate. New York, there's more opportunity in that square block than anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
So that made sense. For it to be in Salt Lake City and parts in Idaho, I have a hard time thinking that the American dream will die in those places.
Yeah.
But to your point, there's no path unless the back breaks that something will change.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's my thing is like, I think the government also wants that in their best interest to make that opportunity alive and well for most Americans. But it's like, how do we get there? Unless prices come down or rates come down substantially.
Yeah. And that's where, I'm under the impression, I think if we're in a 6% market, it's not hot.
Yeah.
And I think we could be there a long time.
Yeah.
Just because we cannot have prices go up. And they absolutely will go up if we get back into the 5s or low 6s quickly. And what I think is so interesting and why I've almost stopped giving market predictions is if you would ask me a year ago where interest rates are at right now, I would say we're at 20% crash. And we're down like 1.8%.
Yeah. It's, and that's the interesting part. It's so hard to tell because people try to compare what's going on to past things. And it's like, a lot of people say like history repeats itself. And it's like, history never actually repeats itself.
No.
Because it's like, there's never the same factors that have caused a market crash. It's always something new. And so when you're trying to compare this to 2008, 2009, it's like, we're not in that same situation, different inventory levels, different, people getting different kind of financing. We don't have that. We had really strict financing. We have super low inventory levels. So if we got an increase of supply, I absolutely think the market would come down because, we just don't have the demand that would fill that supply. And so, but I just don't see us getting an increase of supply anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't either. I think my one concern we're starting to see locally that I can speak to is we are getting the calls of I either can't afford my payment, so I can, CAN, the 7-8%, high 6s, but I don't want to anymore, or I can't afford it. And the 2, 3, 4%, those will be locked forever. Thank goodness those kept the housing market. But if you look at the foreclosure database in Utah, that was something that people rolled their eyes at, and now it's hitting. And so that's what I think could break the bone of the housing market is high interest rates for a while.
Yeah.
And that I can't speak to. I do the feds want that? You read in between the lines. I think a lot of them do.
Yeah.
And it's just, and then and I know this is going all over the place, but you see people say, oh, if it goes down 10%, who cares? It went up 40.
Yeah.
Well, it only went up 40 for a portion.
Yeah.
And then there was a massive portion who bought on the tail end of 40.
Correct.
Or who are buying now, to where that 10% means foreclosure. And I'm like, I mean, even
you bring up a good, bring up a really good point. Cause I mean, and we're getting the calls too of people that have a good interest rate and can't afford the payment. They have a 3.2 locked in. They have a 2.8 locked in, and they lost a job or they need to move for a job opportunity or something, and they can't sell it for what they bought it for. And so like we've done some creative financing deals in the last 2 months of, finding a buyer that wants to come in and do a subject to deal and we take over the debt. But that's starting to scare me because I'm even hearing, like, I think it was on a national level, we were at like, I think it was 70 or 80% of Americans had an interest rate under 4%. Well, that number is now down to 60% because they are selling. Like those people that have the low interest rates are selling because there's some factor that causing them to sell. Hopefully they have enough equity to sell. But if we're running into people that bought in the last year, that they're just not, their equity's not there to sell.
Yeah.
And so like, what are those people going to do? It'll be interesting. I think there's a lot. The only thing I think though that's going to kind of counteract that is there's a lot of investors out there.
Yeah.
Every property that we've came across that is in that situation, we'd be able to find an investor that'll purchase that debt.
Yeah, and what's interesting, I would love to hear in higher price markets because you're seeing that a little bit, but in San Diego, do you see that? Or
that's true.
LA, do you see that? And it's the other thing I was thinking. I was going to speak something on Open Door, but I'm not going to get the stats right, so I'm not going to say it. But it was, so there was an economist at a conference we just attended where the average buyer to buy a house is about $200 to $300 more than it is renting right now.
Yeah.
What's interesting, that is not at all the case in coastal markets, Rocky Mountain markets that are expensive.
Yeah.
We are probably $1,500 to $2,000 more expensive to purchase than rent. And it's how long can that last and how much bigger can that gap get before it causes a problem? And I think you're under one camp where we are a renter country and there's a massive argument for that. Investors, we're all controlled, or it's no, the government does not want that to happen. So they won't allow it. And that will come at the cost of killing equity.
Yeah. Which in itself causes it's hard because the feds are in a tough spot because if they do that and it does cause home values to come down, like it's a pretty big problem for the whole economy.
Yeah.
Like you saw what that could do.
That's what it's Jerome Powell, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to ask him. I'd be like, do you care? Because I'd like to know the answer.
Yeah.
If 10% or of the population who bought in the past 12 months has to go to foreclosure, would he say, yeah, we'll take that?
That would be a good question.
Because I think everybody's like, oh, no, that would never happen.
Yeah.
But if you think how insignificant that is to the U.S. population.
Yeah.
I'm going to speak for him, but my guess is, yeah, we would do that.
Yeah.
We'd take that
necessary step. Be willing to risk that. Yeah. No, I think you're right, which is crazy. And I think it's going back to like the cost of rent and the cost of owning a home. If we look at like history, like it's always been more expensive to buy, or it should be more expensive to buy than it is to rent. But what you're looking for there as a homeowner is you're looking for, that's at least I'm getting that fixed payment where like it should be, over 30 years. It's going to go up based on taxes, but it's not going to increase at the level that rents should increase year over year. And then you have the opportunity to gain equity. But I think the problem is homeownership it was almost a game the last 3 years. So like people that shouldn't have bought a home, bought a home because rates were so good and they qualified. And then the home needs a new water heater or a furnace, and they're not budgeting for that stuff.
No.
So they don't know how to maintain a home. And so I think that's my worry too, is a lot of homeowners that did purchase that do have low rates should have never been homeowners, and they're going to realize that. And then they're going to come into the market and try to sell. Some people just should rent. And so I don't know. I think real estate was kind of gamified the last 3 years from an investor standpoint, from a home buyer standpoint. 100%. And I think it's kind of like the game is getting reset. Yeah. Like, hey, it was a game, but we're pausing it, we're resetting it. Here's like actually how real estate works. Yeah. And for a lot of people, like real estate buying single family rentals is not the best investment for you right now. Like you should look at other investments. I think the stat of 80% of millionaires were, made by real estate or something. Real estate doesn't make you rich.
No.
Buying a cash flowing property that does $200 to $300 a month does not. I mean, what is $200 to $300 a month going to do for you?
Yeah.
Like it's not the game. Millionaires invest into real estate. It's part of their portfolio because they have a career that makes them a really good income, that they have a surplus of cash. And they're like, I'm going to spend that surplus of cash and buy an asset that I'm going to hold for the next 10 years.
100%.
But so many people think they just twist it like, oh, in order to be a millionaire or do this, I need to get into real estate. Yeah. And they save up their
So dangerous.
So dangerous. Because I'm like, one big repair comes. If you don't have the cash, you're going to be underwater. You should look at like, I'm a big proponent of like, how do you increase your income earning potential? And then when you have a surplus, I think when you have a surplus, first go and do active investments like flipping homes, like you guys do. And then when you have, if you have 50,000, go flip homes. And then once you have a surplus of like 200,000, then peel off 80,000 and go buy a rental and like park that.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And like my wife and I are a perfect example of that, where we did a flip. We bought it for 9. Resale was 2.4.
Crazy.
We put 300-400 in. And we got to the point where when we were ready to sell it, we thought, number one, we don't know if it would sell for 2.4 anymore. And number two, we don't really want to sell it. So we moved in, and that's kind of like our rule of thumb for flips. Like, can we ourselves afford this if things go bad? But people see, I buy for 9, I resell for 2.4, and they fail to do the consequences of what could happen. So what happens if you do like crazy finance terms? You buy for 9 and you can only sell it 1.8. And by the way, you can't sell it for 18 months. That's where people, I'm just like.
And holding periods.
Yeah.
On that.
Yeah.
Like when you're talking about, I mean, most hard money, you're at like 10% at least, maybe a few points on that. If you're paying 10% on interest rate, like that's going to eat you up pretty quick. Like your profits, especially at 1.8.
Yeah.
What is that? $18,000 a month in interest?
Yeah. And like you said, how it's been gamified, because I think you see, like, real from me, we made X amount. And then it's like, if you don't understand how much money that takes to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of, we've never even remotely been in a close spot to where it's gone bad. And I say that because we've stayed up at night trying to make money. And I'm just like, I know people who are doing the opposite, just see the numbers and, I can make so much money.
Yeah.
Like, I'm praying that you can too.
Yeah.
But be careful.
No, and that's, I think so many people they look at people like you and your wife that are flipping at a high level. And they see the numbers. It's enticing. I've like, well, look what Michael's doing. Like, looks like I want to flip in that category, but you guys put so much time and effort, and you guys have a talent pool of people around you to make that work that most people just don't have.
Totally.
And so it's like, recognize what value you can add to the marketplace and kind of stay in your realm. You guys are great because you have that vision and you can take that home and make it worth 2.4 million. Most people are going to take that home at 900,000 and invest a lot of money, and it's only going to sell for 1.5, and they're going to try to like maybe break even if they can. Yeah. This isn't the market to do that in.
No.
Like you gotta have your numbers dialed in. And then people don't understand the costs, like cost of capital to do that. Your holding periods, if you're not hitting your timelines. Yeah. There's just so many things that I've seen gone wrong that I think it's going to be a rude awakening for a lot of investors over the next 6 months.
I 100% agree. And I think in real estate, there is always a time to get into real estate a certain type. So whether it's like sub 2, seller financing, which I know nothing about.
Yeah.
That's the card I would play right now because the risk can be lower.
We need to teach you about that.
Flipping is like, that is the last thing I would try right now as a first time flipper. And I think you can't ever predict the market, but you can predict stability to where markets typically don't change overnight. Like it would be naive to think that a market crash wasn't coming when you're increasing 20% every year.
Yeah.
It's like we are going to hit 6.5, and it's going to stable. Might go up, might go down, but it's not going to drop. That's when to get into flipping.
It's like, real estate might go up 3% next year. which is on average, but like 3% doesn't excite people anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, it's not a game. Well, it's like, that's how real estate
3% will be so epic in my mind.
Yeah.
If it actually is 3, I'm like, down 5 is fine.
Yeah.
With me.
Yeah.
Just don't go down 12.
Yeah. That's what we're looking at. Like when we do flips right now, we do flips, not of your scale, but it's like, how quick can we get out of this project? Cause it's not, cause we don't want to be holding it for long. Cause who knows what the market's going to hold. But like you said, things don't change overnight.
No.
So as long as you can get in and out in a pretty quick time frame, like you should be fine.
Yeah.
But you got to make sure that your stuff's dialed in. Like
100%.
don't take on a flip that's going to take you a year, because who knows what's going to happen in the next year. It's too long. So yeah. And then from we're even looking at development projects right now. And even from a development side, we're breaking in, we're going under, like, here, we're going to value what our goal is 12% under market rate, our market value right now, because we want to build in that cushion. Yeah. And then like we're running worst case scenarios. Market comes down 25%. Cost doesn't go down with that, which would be unreal. Like if market crash 25%, cost would go down as well. The cost to build.
Grant Cardone would own us all.
Yeah. Took a quick break because we had to go. We actually went and walked some of your flips that you're doing so we could see them in person. But we're back to the podcast. We're going to catch up where we left off. I was talking about the development project we were looking at in Victor. And when we're looking at a project like that right now, we're looking at even worst case if the market came down 25% and cost to build didn't come down at all, which would be unreasonable. Do we still make it out alive?
Yep.
And it's like, if that number's okay and we ran it and it's like, cool, we'll get out it with like a 3% annual rate of return, but it's not great, but you're also not going to lose your crap. Yeah. And so,
that's the like CD at a bank money.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's still safe, but I think you have to be looking at that risk when you're analyzing projects right now.
Yeah.
Just in case, because you don't know what's going to happen. Nobody does. And if it doesn't happen, then it's just the cherry on top for your profits. Is that how you guys are kind of looking at flips right now?
Super high end, no.
Okay.
Because it's not changing.
Yeah.
And we don't do anything that the margins aren't insane to where we can't like double our money. For lower end and sub 1.2.
Yeah.
Is we are removing comps from 2022 and taking comps in the past 60 days.
Smart.
So I think I don't know. I think mid pandemic is where I really could see prices going back to if things go bad. And I think a lot of people would say that's what's best for the real estate market in Utah.
Yeah.
I don't think so, but I'm biased.
Why do you think the high end isn't changing?
I think just the developments that are happening, it's funny because in the car we were like, why is this place so expensive?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know why it's so expensive, but developers across the country, Austin, New York, Boston, LA are spending money like crazy here.
Yeah.
And so as long as they are, I just don't see the city turning the other way.
I agree. And you look at, I was driving through St. George when we were there earlier this year, and the amount of developments that are
St. George is insane.
I'm like, and I was looking at, we rented an Airbnb and we stayed at this like, it was 3-story Airbnb, maybe 2,800 square feet. I was looking up the price and it was like $1 million something for this like townhome.
Yeah.
And so in like a very tight community with like a little single car garage. And I'm like, where's all these developments that are coming up? Where's all this money coming from? Like, who's going to buy all these things in St. George? And maybe it's retirees. I don't know. Part of it was like either the developers have confidence in the market that they're going into, or like, is there a concern that we are overdeveloping in certain areas? I think the argument is we have such low supply, which I do agree with. There's no argument there. We have a low supply of homes, and we have the largest cohort of people that are ready to purchase their homes. It's like the millennial generation was bigger than the baby boomers. We didn't plan their housing right because we were coming off of 2008, 2009.
Totally.
So we didn't get that planned right. So I do think we need that inventory, but can the prices sustain there? And you're in a totally different market, because you're saying here your average household income is probably $200,000. Both, both
around here. Yeah.
Yeah, around
100%.
Sugar House and stuff. Where, we're coming from Idaho Falls, where, your average household income's like 70 maybe.
Total?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess who's who's buying these high-end homes that you guys are flipping?
So when we flipped the big one that we sold, it was a jazz player, a buyer from New York City, and then a buyer from Canada.
Really?
Yeah. And all three had roots here. Two of them had, one was a jazz player. Two had plans or was already building a company in Utah.
Got it.
And I think you're seeing that a lot. Who are the other buyers? What I think is really interesting is historically Utah was a pretty cheap market for what it was. And people in Utah have always had money. So I think it's kind of a myth that all these buyers are coming from California.
Yeah.
It's just these buyers who've had money in Utah have never had to spend it.
Yeah.
And they're being forced to. So it's tech, it's people who are moving here. And then, like, I'm not a believer in it. I'm not a skier or snowboarder, but that is catapulted. And I think it's really hard to believe in prices and believe in something when you don't do it and experience it.
Yeah.
But if you remove that, we are a world-class destination for XYZ.
Yeah, no, that's true. Salt Lake is such a unique city. I look at it, and it's because you don't have the oceans and stuff. But like, what other city are you 25 minutes away from like some of the best skiing? Yeah. But then you have a big city,
totally
right here. It's like you have the big city life, but then you can also go to the mountains in 25 minutes to Park City and ski and do that whole. It's like Jackson Hole is kind of the equivalent for us, but it's like there's no big city next to Jackson Hole. So I think that's definitely your leg up. And there's a big expansion going on in Park City, right? Yeah. So,
well, everywhere. This is really interesting. I don't know if we could make this a graphic or something. I've never even heard of this. In Utah County, which is by Provo, for where most listeners will know, they're literally building a city. They've partnered with Studio McGee, Fox, which is a big builder, and they are building a city of the future. And I don't know how many square blocks, but I think you're just seeing stuff in Utah that you see in Austin, San Diego, that you probably saw 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's...
Do you know what their plans are with it? Have you...
Oh, it's nuts. Yeah. I don't know if we can tag like a hyperlink, but it's restaurants, it's condo living, coffee shops. I've literally never seen it. It's a full-on city
like they're
being
just
built.
From ground up. They're developing a city basically with
100%.
Commercial, residential. Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Who's
and they're
backing that?
I don't know who the developer is, and I hate having info and not having anything behind it. But they've hired people who've gone to like Amsterdam, Boston.
Really?
So the whole thing is they're trying to build a super tight-knit, walkable city. And so it's not what you'd think, like big lots, master plan development.
Yeah.
It is like we're going to try and build a no car,
like a European city.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
that. Speaking of European, you've been to Greece or Italy twice?
Italy twice. And then we went to a bunch of countries the second time.
That's twice this year.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. Must big ballin'.
Big baller. Yeah. Europe's really interesting.
Yeah. What was your perspective on that? Like, did you like, because everything in Europe is tighter communities.
Yeah.
Those coffee shops, very walkable. What was your thoughts?
I've said this to a couple people, and I feel shallow saying this. Every time I go to Europe, I hate Europe for the first couple days, and I cannot deal with the pace. I can't deal with hey, there's no hours. The pace is when we want. The siesta. It's like, why would you live here?
Yeah.
And then by the time we leave, it's like, this is the best way to do life.
Yeah.
So
I've never been to Europe, but I need to go because I feel like it is so slow paced. It's probably good for a little reset.
Yeah.
Like, do you prefer, I don't know, could you live there?
Europe, no, but could I find that lifestyle in America? I think I would love it. Because I think you go to This is like going deeper. But in Europe, literally nothing matters. It's like family, food, relationships. Where the US, like Del, my wife and I were talking, it's like, we'll go a month with just like, what did we just do the past month? Did we even see a friend?
Yeah.
Like, that kind of stuff.
That's where I kind of get like, does the US have it wrong? Like, do we have it wrong where, I mean, I've reflected on this a lot lately. Like, what truly matters?
Totally.
Like, because I get hit by a car tomorrow. And if I've spent the last 2 years just building a business and like trying to make this money, it's like, that's great. But what truly matters?
Yeah.
Like, and what's it all for? You know?
We question that all the time. And I think at least I had the mindset, you build something so big, you make so much money so that you can have financial freedom. Because that is absolutely what we're trained in the US.
Yeah.
And we just got to the point where it's like, my financial freedom will look much different by the age of 30 than it will now. Mm-hmm. And that goalpost will just keep going. So I love America, but I think we have it wrong in the sense of grind. But the counter argument is there's no place you can chase opportunity.
No, it is. It's the country of opportunity for sure. But I feel like everybody's developed this financial freedom mentality of like, that's the goal for everybody. But at the end of it, like, what are you going to do when you hit your financial freedom?
Yeah. Like, who are you going to hang out with? Because nobody else is living that life. Genuinely. Like, you have your family, which I'm glad, cool.
Yeah.
But you're going to get bored of your 3-person family being financial freedom all day.
Like, you're just going to sit on the beach and like scroll TikTok.
Yeah.
It's like, that'll be cool for like the first week, you know, and then you're going to be like, I want to work. So then you're going to go back to working. I listened to this podcast that was with Brandon Turner from, I don't know if you listened to Bigger Pockets.
Oh yeah. So
like he was one of the founders there, but he made a good point. He's like, you know, everybody gets it wrong. Like it's the financial freedom, but like, why not? Shouldn't the goal just be like to build a life that you don't want to escape from?
Yes.
So like, and that's where I'm kind of going through this crisis, I want to say, with the team of like what I want. Because at the end of the day, I want the team to give me the life that I want to have, where I just wake up and I want to go to the team and I'm excited about what we're doing, you know? And I feel lost in that right now. Yeah. That's kind of why. But what's your thoughts on it? Like, are you guys chasing this financial freedom? What do you guys, what's your end goal?
I think the end goal is, that's tough. I think we've hit our financial freedom goal in the sense of we don't feel like we're climbing neighborhoods. Yeah. I think that's really important to us. So it's like we could never have to, if we ever sell, we're never having to chase the ladder up neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So that's a really cool point to hit. And then I think the other goal is like, how do we slow down? Because we have lived a fast-paced life for a long time. And then I don't know. I want a family. Dom wants a family, but it's like we're busy. We're trying to, doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That's a bad answer to that question.
Yeah. You kind of beat it around it a little bit. But do you think like, is the end goal, you want to be in Utah?
No.
Or do you want, no. So where do you want to be?
This is actually my end goal. This is not the end goal. This is the soon goal. I will probably always be in Utah. Mm-hmm. I do not want to have to be in Utah.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be a jet setter. I'm not going to be living here 1 week, living there 1 week. But if Dom and I and a kid or dog want to move for 2 months, we can move. And we can stay there or we can come back. So that's definitely the 3-year goal, I'd say.
How do you get there?
We, for the first time ever, our stuff is loaded with the right people.
Yeah.
And I always feel like we've been one hire away, which is super draining and daunting.
Yeah.
You probably feel the same way. Mm-hmm. Like, if we could hire this one person, all our problems would be taken care of. It was like, you sat in the room you were sitting in today.
Yeah.
We don't need more people. And we don't need more people with ideas who execute. It's like, we have it figured out. So that, I think, just executing on that and not becoming wishy-washy and getting silver optic syndrome.
I agree. When we're at this conference in San Diego, I sat in one of the breakout sessions, and one of them was a guy that runs a team, and he ran 2 teams in the States, and then he lived in Hawaii and ran another team in Hawaii. And his thing was like, I golf 4 days, 3 days, 4 days a week. I live in Hawaii. I'm not even on boots on the ground where my teams are, but he just got the right people in the right place that execute. And I'm like, that's kind of like, man, that sounds really nice. It's so hard because you get so many people that run different style teams or doing the model differently. It's just hard to figure out like what is the right path.
Yeah.
But I think it has to start with where is your end goal? Because if your end goal is to be able to travel, and that's similar to what we want to do, it's like you have to scale to a point where you can afford to bring the right people in, and then they can continue to run it. But it's got to be big enough because that's really hard to do with a small organization. It's possible, but even after our talks today, you're talking about our market. You're like, first, you just need to get into a bigger market.
Yeah.
And like, it's probably going to be one of my biggest takeaways is I need to figure out how to get into a bigger market.
Yeah. And I think that's why we're so excited about scaling. And that's not a goal, which is weird.
Mm-hmm.
I think it feels dangerous. That's not a goal because there's no like calculated plan on why or how we're doing this. But I think it speaks to, we have the right people to go do this.
Yeah.
And not many things can go wrong when you have the right people, but I think if you look back at the history where it's like, how many agents can we provide for? How many people can they sell a house to, help buy a house? That's an opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And if all that is simply a numbers game. It's just, we have to have a number of houses that sell and there are number of licensed agents.
Mm-hmm.
And like, when you said that, it's like, that's a wall.
Yeah.
And you either have to be super rare and break that and have 5-10% of the agents, or you go pick a different market.
Yeah. No, it's true. And it's hard because you when you're running a team, it's like you want to get your agents to a certain level of production. Like that's your goal. It's like, I want every agent to be a top producer, but in reality, it's not going to happen.
No.
So you've got to find your numbers with you've got to be scaling in mind, keeping in mind like what an average agent does. Yeah. So you're right. If it's like the average agent is only going to sell 10 homes a year, and we want to sell 300 to 400 homes a year, we need 30 to 40 agents.
Yeah.
It's like that's the math.
Totally.
And unless you can, and I feel like we've been trying to break the math. It's like,
amen to that.
But it's like, you can't break the math. The math is the math, and people have all tried to break the math and it doesn't work. So you've got to just run the math the way it is and figure out how to run a team within that.
Yeah, I think that's equation. Where goals are super hard for us because we're the classic team that smashed every goal. We doubled volume, tripled volume every year. And we've hit that, like we broke the record. We broke the math. Barely.
Yeah.
And then we're setting goals of how can we double agents' production? And we got 30 minutes through that conversation. I'm like, why are we talking about this? It can't happen. Yeah. Do you know how hard this is going to be? So, but the other side to that is you have to have these honest conversations with the agents. And that's where I say hire the right people. When we hired Drew, it was tell the agents in that conversation, you won't hit that. Mm-hmm. And my knee-jerk reaction was like, that's terrible.
Yeah.
And then he explained it. And he was like, no, you explain to them, it won't happen. And it's two things. Yeah, you're right, it won't happen. Or it's like a major reality check of someone who I look up to, someone who I trust just told me it won't happen. Now I actually have to take the accountability and do the things to make it to happen. Mm. And in that conversation, you have an hour goal setting session of something super powerful where they leave knowing how hard it's going to be.
Yeah.
Where I think as team leaders, we do a really bad job of telling people like the actual path to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. We're really good at casting the vision.
Yeah.
Like what it could be. And I feel like the last 2-3 years when you're recruiting agents or bringing agents on, it's like every conversation I was had, like it was honestly, it was hard not to succeed in real estate. Like,
yeah.
Like you said, just answer the phone, go show the house, write the offer, and you're going to make commission. Mm-hmm. As long as you're willing to answer your phone, you're going to do well in real estate. Like totally. Zillow calls are coming in. It'd be pretty hard not to make 6 figures.
Yeah.
Like if if your goal was 50, 60,000, be like, oh, you're not like, you need to be thinking bigger because it's so easy. Yeah. You're telling everybody that they could come in and make 6 figures. But now with the market shifting, I think you're right. You've really got to show the vision of like, it's not easy. No. And if you want to come in and make 6 figures your first year, you're probably not. You still could, but like, you're probably not. Know that. And let's see what kind of activities and tasks you're willing to do. And like, are you willing to take that accountability to get there? So I think how have your agents reacted in this market? You know, you've got 80 something agents. Have you seen a big shift in them? Like, are people looking for jobs? Are you guys worried about losing agents?
Yeah. So we've lost agents. So we have probably lost 10 in the past. I think we've lost 12 in the past year. Not fun. Super big on retention. I believe in retention, why it's important. And I'm not you can replace them. That's not my mentality. But you get to a point where you're doing everything you can and they will just weed out. So some people have left the industry. Some people have left our team. And then a lot have shifted to, I just speak on survival a lot. I'm like not a BSer in that. And if your goal was 30 and you hit 18, you're doing good. Yeah. This year.
Yeah.
And plan for next year on how you can hit 24 or 30. But it's like, we didn't have it figured out. No. Our Q1 was a disaster and we worked like crazy. So I think just having those realistic expectations and then having the conversation of leads are down, referrals are down. And I've a top agent on our team said it at bat game this year. And I just loved it and it stuck with me. And it's not about your conversion rate. It's not about like working smarter and doing the right things. It's just how many people can you get in front of? Because that's the only shot you'll sell a lot of houses this year. It's like the most trusted referral agents. This isn't their year because it's like people aren't buying.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think it all comes down to how many conversations are you having a day, you know, and what are you doing to get it? Like, what are you doing to spark those conversations? You got to be doing some activity to have more conversations because you're not going to have any appointments if you're not talking to people. And the only way to get sales is to have appointments. Yep. So it's like, from the most basic form, you just need to be talking to people. Yeah. So who are you talking to and how are you getting them? And I think that's where you're absolutely right. It's like content. I think a lot of people that have been doing content, I'm still a big proponent on doing the content, but like just doing the content is not enough.
It's not doing you anything.
Yeah. You've got to be also like doing something with that content to generate conversations.
Yeah. And I think content for me, and obviously you have some people like Brad or Paige who do content insane and that actually generates a ton of business.
Yeah.
But in my mind, content is kind of a resume. If you don't do anything, if you don't go submit that resume, you have the best resume in the world.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do you any good.
No, 100%.
So huge believer in content because I think it's mandatory now, but it's not a business generator.
Yeah, I think you got to do it. It's a good resume when you're talking to people, they can see you. What's your guys' like vision for 2024 as a team? What are you trying to do?
Super aggressive.
Okay.
Super aggressive. And I truly haven't been this excited. I've been excited, but it was naive excited. Mm-hmm. It was me and my friends can go sell so many houses, but this year we'll end 750 day, 100 deals. We're down about 100 from last year. We're opening a Utah County office where we want 50 agents. So that's about an hour away from here. Wow. Then our goal is to open up 2 more additional satellite offices for 6 months. And I think it just speaks to the model we think we figured out in the staff. And we did 850 or 850 last year. We'll do 8 this year. I don't know why we wouldn't do 1,500 this next year, which I think is
incredible. Yeah. Do you have locations for your other 2 satellite offices that you want to go into?
Yep. 100%.
Where at?
Park City and Davis County.
Park City's massive.
Yeah.
That even if it doesn't impact your transaction count as much, it'll definitely make a dent in your volume.
100%. Yeah, I mean, we just closed a 6.6. It closes next week.
That's crazy.
Yeah, off a Zillow call that we got Saturday, put it under contract on Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have Zillow zip codes in Park City? Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that seems like it'd be a hard market. Was it hard to break into that one? Or was it not competitive within Zillow?
It's not super competitive because of the timeshares. So you get a lot of bogus calls where you have a $5 million condo that is a 1/16th for like $400,000. It's like, and people think Park City, $400,000?
Yeah.
Nah. So, and I think high price markets on Zillow are inherently way harder to convert.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Have you ran, like, what's your conversion in Park City?
It's the absolute lowest. I couldn't give you the number, but from all 4 counties, it's the lowest.
Yeah. That's tough because I've looked at that in our market, like going into kind of our Driggs Victor area, which is just outside of Jackson Hole. But inventory is pretty limited. And then, yeah, I'm like, man, if you run a less than 7% conversion here, like, you're going to be losing pretty good money because the cost per lead up there is typically higher. I don't know if it's similar within Park City.
Yeah, same thing.
But
it's higher.
Yeah. So, but it allows you, if that's where you want to be, at like satellite office, it allows you to get your name out there and start doing business to like piggyback off of.
Yeah, and I'm so all over the place with brand. That's where I think I'm really struggling. Brand, how long you need to be there. Is it even worth it to build a brand? Because I think like the Perry Group, it's absolutely a brand in Salt Lake City and Sugar House to agents.
Yeah.
Is it a brand to the people? A little bit, but not massive. So you go to these smaller, high price markets. Where is it something we're looking back in 10 years and being like, it's still Sotheby's? Which that's where I'm tired. Like, I don't know if I'm up for that fight.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, it's hard because I think like I've thought about this a lot too. The way you run a team, because right now, if like you guys are obviously big in Zillow, we're big in Zillow, which is hard on the brand because a lot of the consumer, they're just like Zillow's that middleman between the brand. So a lot of the consumers that you're getting are coming through Zillow, so they don't see like the Perry Group. Like I think you're doing it right because, you know, the amount of past, I mean, you're going to have 800 past clients last year, 700 past clients this year. Like, give that 3 to 5 more years, and like your brand will be undeniable because you'll have the word of mouth from all your past clients. So, you know, I was talking to an agent in my market that's been doing it for 15 years, and you know, he's never done Zillow, he's never done that. He's always just, you know, hit the phones, lead gen that way, runs like a 2-3 person team that's pretty tight, but they do, you know, 100 transactions or whatever. But he's like, I think you're doing it right the way. And he's like, if I would rebuild, I would do something similar because the amount, like, with time, yours is the right model. Yeah. Because you're stacking so many people in your database and you're stacking so many people in your past client list that you might not have to. And that's our game. Like, I don't want to have to be dependent on Zillow or have Zillow for our agents in the next 3 to 5 years, because I want to have a big enough brand within our community and offer enough value there that we can just do our own lead gen through our stuff. So that's but it's so hard to get off like, Zillow has such a good control. Yeah.
And it's only going to get bigger.
It is. It's like that competitor, and like, how do you actually compete with that on a large scale? I think Zillow is probably always going to have to play some sort of a role in your business if you want to get that buyer pool. But what's your drive with, like, is there any other things that you guys are focusing on right now? Is like content a big play for you guys? Are you doing any kind of other lead gen?
I think it's what you've been speaking to, which we've done a poor job of, is creating deals through our SOI in Zillow, the return deals.
Yeah.
And it's funny because as you're saying these, I'm disagreeing in my head of, like, get off Zillow and do XYZ. But it's because we haven't marketed and done it the right way to those 800 clients. And I think it's so important. And I don't even have advice because we haven't done it that way. But I think it's so important to do what you've done while you scale. Yeah. Because I can think all day, a team of 10, how to create a community.
Yeah.
But go tell 81 agents, this is the mission statement. This is how you do it. And they're like, So I think if you can scale through Zillow and other lead sources, but create that client experience from 30 agents to 40 agents to 50 agents, you'll absolutely be a brand. And that is where we at 100% have got it wrong. We are a transaction treadmill, and we rely on the agent to get return referrals.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's a good play for us. And obviously, like, you guys are ahead of us. So, and it's a little bit easier for us to pivot and do these things. But we realized, like, it is a really good retention thing.
Yes.
Because now a lot of our agents that are top producers, like, they don't want to wean off of the other things that we do. Like, even if we gave up a good chunk of Zillow right now, they would be okay, because it's like they know all the other value we bring with, like, hitting their SOI,
100%.
doing the retention cards, doing the client experience for them. They know if they go off on their own, they need staff and systems and processes to do that. And it's, we provide that for them.
Yeah.
So it's hard to do, but I'm hoping, like, we talked about my little triangle that I've been thinking about and where to move the needle there. I want to figure it out where we just want to move it a little bit closer up to the profitability and not pull too much from client experience and not pull too much from the lead flow.
Yeah.
But with this market that we're going into, like, I don't know about you guys, but, like, Zillow's not sending as many connection calls.
100%.
So it's like, kind of need to wean off that a little bit if we want to keep protecting our client experience.
Do you think the market gets better or worse than it is right now?
2024?
Yeah.
I think the next, it's tough. I think it's dependent on interest rates. I think, you're going to put me on the spot. Gut feeling isn't good.
Really?
Yeah. Gut feeling is like, be prepared for worst case. Like, be prepared for the winter. I just
been listening to too many podcasts.
Yeah. Maybe.
Ed Milet.
I think
Cash is king.
cash. Yeah. No, we got, I'm still, like, doing investing. We have flips under contract. We're obviously looking at a development project. Like, we're raising money on that. So I'm like, I don't think the market's going to take it. I don't think, like, you should be scared of it. But I also, like, in my head, something's got to give.
Yeah.
And what is it? So if interest rates give, great. But like we talked about earlier, then it's like, inflation's going to go out of whack. If everything stays the same, like, salary's got to go up.
Yeah.
How are people going to afford to buy any of these things? Yeah. So it just doesn't make sense. Like, I think something's got to give. I don't know what's going to give. I think in order for there to be a crash, like, there's got to be a catalyst for that. And I don't know what the catalyst would be other than rates going up dramatically to, like, 10+%. Yeah. And affordability is just non-existent. Values will probably come down. But I also don't see rates going up. And I
don't see rates going up.
So if we sit stagnant, then I just don't see home values just won't increase like we have seen, which I think is fine.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
I learned this the other day. Across the nation, we are now seeing pre-pandemic levels of listings return. So if, just basic example, if you have, on average, pre-pandemic, 100 listings come on in Salt Lake City in October. For 3 years, it was 40, 60, 37. It's now 100 typically come on in November. 100 have come on. And that's only in the past 3 months. So it goes to what we were talking about earlier. Interest rate matters, but it's not king of everything. People
Correct.
move, they sell.
Yep.
If listing inventory returns to normal and interest rates don't change, what happens?
The market's gone.
Yeah.
Like, it's propped up because of our inventory problem. Like, that's the only, if rates were at normal levels and inventory was at normal levels, our market would have crashed.
Yeah.
I think that, and I tell people that. I tell clients that when they're, like, worried about the market. I'm like, if we had normal inventory levels, it wouldn't. That's what's propping it up. I'm concerned, and this is why I haven't bought a house in Phoenix yet, because I want to buy a house in Arizona really bad. I'm concerned about the bigger markets that got a huge influx of growth over the last few years and that are developing quite a bit.
Yes.
I think in our market, personally, like, our market didn't get hit bad in even, like, 2008, 2009. Like, we only decreased like 15%. So it wasn't crazy. But Phoenix, Vegas, other markets decreased by 50%, sometimes even more. So I'm nervous about those areas. I talked to Sharon's business partner that does the multifamily at the conference, and asked the question about inventory levels for multifamily, because they're still buying a lot of multifamily, and they're just buying in areas that they don't think have oversupplied. So they're not buying in Austin.
They're not buying in Salt Lake.
Because they're not buying in Salt Lake, maybe. But they're buying in, like, I think they were looking at a draw, like in Atlanta or outside of Atlanta, and like somewhere over there. So they're looking at markets that they think are a little bit more insulated. And I think that's kind of what we're looking at too, is I think our market in Idaho Falls and Idaho's going to be okay. Maybe Boise. I don't know what the Boise market is. That one filled like pretty inflated. Yeah. I think Salt Lake looks
super inflated.
Feels pretty inflated.
100%.
And so I think that those markets may see more of a correction if buyer demand stops. But my other thing is, like, is the wealth gap just that much bigger than we think? And like, because everybody talks about how painful inflation is and the cost of everything's gone up. Have you stopped buying stuff? No, it's like, have you changed your lifestyle at all? And I've like asked multiple people that. I even asked agents on my team, have you guys changed your lifestyle? Are you not getting that extra Starbucks? No. Yeah. Everybody's still just living the way they are. And that's the problem, is like, even if like we can't slow down demand.
No. Yeah. And I mean, we are literally the perfect example. Our house payment was about $2,000, and the house we just moved into, it tripled. We are super frugal people. And it's like, is what it is.
Yeah.
Can't do anything about it. And do you have enough people with our mindset where it goes wrong? Or it's just, is the gap, it's just the new way of life. Yeah. And I don't. You get me in a bad day, I think the market's going terrible. And then days like today, I'm like, you're going to have some foreclosures. You might have a lot of foreclosures.
Yeah.
But does it really do anything? I don't know.
I don't think so. I think you've got enough people with enough money that are waiting for foreclosures that if they start coming, they'll get gobbled up.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't think it like widespreads. So I don't know. Maybe there's just more money out there than I think. And, maybe this market's going to just maybe there is nothing wrong with the market. Maybe there is just enough money and people can't afford these things. They just, maybe that's what people were saving more money than they are now, but now they're just okay spending it. Yeah. And they're living without saving as much, which maybe there's some long-term effects that we'll see down the road from that. But I don't know.
I think we see a 10% decrease. That's my guess.
Home buys in the next year.
Yep. And I think the government cares enough to get involved before we see a crash.
Yeah.
But I really do think it would be healthy to go down 10%. And I think two things are going to happen. Interest rates stay the same-ish, which I think that happens regardless. Mm-hmm. And inventory levels return to normal. And I think it goes really bad. That's one scenario. I think the other scenario is interest rates stay, inventory returns, and it kind of goes to the wealth gap, where it is what it is. Some people are going to lose it, and then a majority of the people don't have to change their lifestyle, and they're going to be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think inventory will reduce prices. Absolutely. That's economics.
Yeah.
But it won't, I think, shock the system like a lot of people are.
I think the thing that we don't, and I haven't looked in the data on this, but I'm going to give you a thought. Because I read it in a book a while ago, but it talked about like big companies and how a lot of big companies they don't look at population growth when they're running metrics. So it talked about a story back in 1990 where like Yamaha didn't run, like their average target market was like 20-year-olds or like 17-year-olds to 25-year-olds. Well, we had less people for like 5 or 10 year gap because there was a world war or there was a war, so they didn't have kids. They had less kids. So the population growth during this 5-year period was they're going to have less consumers in their market. Well, they didn't think about that, and they like over supplied their market and they didn't have the demand there. Well, they go back and it's like, if you would have looked at population growth, and I think that's maybe one of the key things that we're missing is we have such a large population.
Yes.
And everybody's going to need housing.
Yes.
Builders aren't looking at population growth when they're building, typically.
No.
They're just looking at, how many cells can we get?
That's the last thing you'd ever look at.
Yeah, most people don't ever look at it.
Such a long game.
But you have to, because I'm like, if we had the largest population growth and our largest population coming up, and they're buying homes, millennials, and we've got even larger population behind them, like maybe everybody's just missing, like maybe just building a whole new city in Utah is the way to go because we're going to need it.
Yeah.
People are going to need a place to live. And so, and then we've all, you talk about migration levels, like how many people are migrating to the US? Like, what does that look like? So I think we get caught up in the little things that we can really tell. Yeah. And sometimes we miss the bigger picture of,
that's a really good point.
Maybe this is all sustainable because there's that many people in this country that actually need a place to live. And a large majority of them are on the sidelines. And we've seen that the last 9 months, but they're actually starting to come off the sidelines because they're like, we just can't wait this out forever either. We need a place to live.
Totally.
And we don't want to rent.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know the numbers behind that, but I feel like that's also something that we should be looking at and we need to know because it might be totally fine.
Yeah. And I think we forget so often the emotional piece of real estate where this isn't commercial. This isn't multifamily. You have people who would spend double to feel at home and to customize their house and to have a garden and paint their bedrooms to where us as agents and when you're looking at it from an investment, it makes no sense, but you can't tell somebody that.
Yeah.
Well, you can, and they don't care. They're like, it's my house. It's like you said, the payment's locked.
Yep.
I never have to move. And I mean, I love these conversations. And then when I have it with just regular people who aren't real estate, I'm like, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Literally nobody cares. And real estate is important to a degree for just about everything. But like people don't have to buy. People don't have to sell. And then people have to buy and they have to sell.
Yeah. Life, no matter what rates are at, what home values are doing, like life happens.
Yep.
People get divorced. People die. People need to upsize. People need to downsize. People need to move jobs.
Call me for all those reasons.
Call Michael in Salt Lake and call me in Idaho.
Yeah.
But like life, life doesn't care.
No.
So life's going to continue happening. There's always going to be transactions. And that's why I'm not nervous about, being in real estate because despite what happens in the market, there are always going to be transactions and we're just going to we might have to pivot and do something different, but like we'll always be able to get those transactions. So yeah. I'm not that concerned with that. But I am curious. I am so curious to see how things play out. I think we can either have, like you said, a down market with 10% over the next year, or things just stay stagnant throughout the winter and interest rates stay level and we get demand back like normal in the springtime and we're fine.
100%.
So, and I think if you're trying to time it, this isn't the time to try to like time the market.
No.
You're buying for other reasons. And like we talked about earlier, real estate's been gamified the last few years where people are looking at buying a home as an investment and they want appreciation, like massive appreciation, because that's what they've seen the last 3 to 4 years. That's not typical. Like our parents weren't buying homes because like they wanted to invest in real estate.
No, they wanted a place to live.
They wanted a place to live.
100%.
And your dad, we talked to your dad and, he said, yeah, I paid 9%. I was paying 9% interest on my first house and we bought it for $70,000. And, it's like, they weren't looking at it as, they were investing in real estate. They just looked at it as they were buying a home and a place to live.
And I think they're a perfect example. They own their house outright. It's probably worth $1 million. They bought it for 77 or whatever. Still nobody cares.
Yeah.
They're not selling that house.
Yeah.
They will probably live there forever. Might be worth $2 million. And that's a security asset. Absolutely. So real estate builds wealth, but it doesn't build 10-year wealth or 20-year wealth. It's like when it gets past generations, that's typically when people feel it.
Yeah. And I think that's where people are confused, because people are confused on like buying real estate is the way to get rich. But it's typically like, I don't know anybody. Yeah, there's maybe some billionaires out, Grant Cardone, maybe he's bought real estate and got rich, but he's buying multifamily and buying big chunks of real estate. Mom and pop that invest in real estate, they got rich they got wealthy over a 20 or 30-year period.
Yeah.
They didn't like that $200 to $300 of cash flow wasn't making them rich off of year 1 or 2. But as their, rents increase over 5 years and that cash flow turns into more money, it's like, yeah, it gets better and they get their asset paid off and there's no debt on it and you've got the cash flow.
Yep.
That's when you're actually building the wealth. But, so many people have gotten it confused. And I think it's just because it's just the social media era that we're in. Mm-hmm. Everybody talks about buying real estate. Yeah. I think buying real estate, and I've said it, like it's a terrible, if you're not where you want to be income wise, it's probably not your best option. Like invest that money into skills and assets
100%.
That can make you more active income.
Yep.
And then look to invest into real estate. Yep. Like I have people, young kids that are like, I want to get into real estate. And they're like, I did summer sales and I've got $30,000 saved. It's like, don't waste that $30,000 on an asset where you're going to make $100 a month.
Yeah. And I mean, and to that point, real estate has made us a ton of money.
Yeah.
Through flips.
Yeah.
We've lost money on rentals because it's just like, it's not my skill set. Mm-hmm. Bought it, not forgot about it, but there's not motivation to get a tenant in there. Mm-hmm. And you wake up 3 months later, it's like, why did I just buy this thing? If I cash flow $500 a month, it's gone still.
Yeah.
And there's like taxes and all that stuff you benefit from. But yeah, what you said earlier of trying to get your income as high as possible, because then I think you can do some really cool things with real estate.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can reverse engineer house hack your way to richness.
Yeah.
It's like that will get you in a better place.
Yeah.
But could you have done other things to get you an extra?
Have you watched Pace Morby?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's hard because that model is so difficult. Pace, he's buying a lot of real estate and he's, not doing down payments, but there's so many things that could go wrong. When you have that many houses, even if you didn't put any cash down, like if you can't place a tenant in there for a month or two, like, are you going to front? You still got to front that bill. I think it's just that misconception, and good for Pace. He's building an incredible brand and he's doing his thing. But for the average Joe, you can't watch that and just be like, I'm going to go buy real estate with no money down and try to cash flow it. And you've got no money. Pace is in a different position. I don't know who's backing him financially, and he's got his own money that if a ton of his properties aren't, rented out for a month, he can front that cost. Yeah. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
But most people can't. So like, don't go over leverage, because I think that's where people are going to get screwed in this market, is if they try to over leverage themselves. They try to like, hey, I'm okay with only making $100 of cash flow, but then a furnace goes out. Yeah. It's like 3 years of your cash flow
100%
gone. And if you don't have that money out of pocket, like, where are you going to get it? You can't refinance a house right now.
Nope.
So whenever I do deals, like if I buy a rental property, I got to be okay with me absorbing that cost, and okay, if it breaks even, am I okay?
Yeah.
So, and I don't think a lot of people look at that because they're following somebody on YouTube that they saw that's making a lot of money in real estate.
Yeah. I think the social media way of doing real estate is so dangerous. Like I saw something where it was like, you're an idiot if you don't own 30 rentals by age 30. And the person was making fun of them. And then it ended. It was like, how do you expect me to own 30 rentals? Like, actually, how?
Yeah.
And just people don't talk about that. They talk about door knocking, sub to seller financing. Like, if you understood a lot of that stuff and how those deals are done.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to say it on a podcast, but I would venture to say, go make more money elsewhere.
Yeah.
Do your thing.
Well, and I think like it's so easy to talk about these things, but like when you actually get into how are you going to, everybody's like, I want to get to a cash flow number of $20,000 a month or $30,000 a month. It's like, great. How?
Go make 300,000, 400,000.
Exactly. Like it's so much easier. I gotta buy 30 properties. Okay. Where are you going to find 30 deals?
Yeah.
And then where are you going to get the funds to buy 30 properties?
And you gotta have the credit score. Like it is so much more than a have money, be qualified. It's like, it's have money, be qualified, stay in a job that has a crazy salary, never mess up your credit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not realistic. But if you say like, hey, go learn a skill that can make you an extra 5-10 grand a month, like 100%. That's very doable for the person. Or like, somebody, Ryan Pineda said at one time, he's like, go ask your boss for $1,000 a month raise. And that's like, you just bought 10 properties. Like,
yeah.
That's way easier. Like go learn a skill, become more valuable at your job or your workplace and get $1,000 raise a month. Mm-hmm. Like that's going to be easier and more beneficial for you. And then make smart decisions, save money. And when you have enough, then you can invest in real estate.
Well, and this is random, but I look at doctors and doctors have a crazy life. But by the time they're 50, it's kind of like they're the ones who figured it out. Mm-hmm. They can eventually live a pretty relaxed life. They went into debt, but they have a crazy nice house. And typically they're low risk. It's like, go find that job that makes a ton of money. Go live in a place you love. And then you will get forced wealth by living somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's so many arguments on how to do things, but it's what's being told right now. I'm like, I would do it different.
And I think, and I agree. And I think the hard part is like most people they don't want to wait.
Yeah.
Because even the doctor route, it's like there's
brutal
a period of time. Like you got to be committed, and there's like 10 years where you're going to be paying off debt and really kind of living frugally. And then eventually you'll get into like, okay, but now we can use our income to buy the house. Mm-hmm. The lack of patience that our generation has right now is incredible. And I feel so bad for young individuals because they look at social media and like entrepreneurship has been put on this pedestal. They think every business is successful and every business makes millions of dollars. But when you look at the true P&Ls of a lot of businesses, like a lot of businesses don't make money.
Oh yeah.
But because we're under this misconception of like business owners and entrepreneurs are doing this and they're doing it at a young age, everybody feels behind.
Yes.
And when you feel behind, then you get that anxiety and you just feel like I feel like there's a lot of kids that are just depressed.
Yeah.
Because they're comparing themselves to the YouTuber that, they're comparing themselves to Ryan Pineda or like these guys that were making millions. And you can do it. I think the hard part is that people can see that it's possible now, where it like used to be, you just didn't know.
Yeah.
But now you know. So now you know it's possible. So now you feel like if you're not doing it, you're not succeeding. Mm-hmm. And I think like you've got to be comfortable. I feel that way sometimes. And you got to understand that this is a long game.
Yeah.
Most businesses aren't profitable for the first few years. Like I love like Jimmy Rex just shared his Instagram video about, he's kind of pulling back the veil on some of his businesses and some of his investments. Cause he's like, not all investments pan out, but he talked about his one the content studio that he set up. He's like, it's 2 years in, they're still running. They're still at like a negative or
is it really
$26,000 loss, like total. They've only had a few profitable months. And he's like,
that's insane.
Yeah. He's
Dude,
like,
I literally, and that's exact proof of what you're saying. I was like, we need to start a content studio. I don't know why we haven't. That exact thought is just, I will never think about starting another content studio.
Yeah. Well, he said, he's like, he put 80 grand into it. And he's like, I knew that it was going to take a few years to get this profitable. So like he's hopefully like he's thinking about things the right way, but a lot of people are going to look at that and see on Instagram, like, oh, he started this content studio and it looks like he's making a lot of money, but he's making money from other things.
Yeah.
And like most businesses, aren't going to turn a massive profit for the first few years. So you got to be okay with doing whatever you do and doing it with a passion, or be okay going to work for somebody. I know there's that like big thing on social media, like don't work for somebody, build your own business, don't work the 9 to 5. It's yes, if you want that work life, but we talked about it earlier, like you work from 7 to 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Like most people can't do that. And if you like audit your life, if you can't do that, then be okay working for somebody else. And you can still make a lot of money when you add value to a company.
Yeah, 100%.
You can, the number 2 guy at Facebook still makes a lot of money.
Well, and I just look at it as someone who's lived the entrepreneur life. 7 years deep, I could work a 9 to 5 and I could clock out and I could have nights and I could have weekends. And I still would choose my life because I think it can lead to something, but I'm no longer the person who's like, yeah, that life is not for me. Like I understand the value of Thanks, I'm done.
Yeah. Security.
Yep.
You understand the value of security, not having to like grind for something.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you've always got to be worried about what the team's selling, what the revenue's coming in, what your expenses are, you know?
Well, it's so draining to constantly, I think to be a profitable business, you have to constantly evolve.
Yep.
And make sure you're always staying on the cutting edge. Like, that's so draining. Like
Dave Ramsey said this thing where he's like, you know, they asked like, what would you tell your younger self? And he was like, nobody's going to save you. Like, he's like, for the longest time, I was just waiting for like that one person to come into my business and like, I wouldn't have to worry anymore.
Yeah.
Like that one, you know, that one hire that's just going to take everything off my plate and like, and then I'm going to be fine. Like, it just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Like, cause you're right. You have to constantly evolve and you're going to have to constantly grow. And if you want to stay in business, cause you can get to a point where like, I've got the best systems, the best stuff, and that'll be great for about 2 years, 3 years. And then it's like, you've got to change cause that no longer works.
100%.
And so it is exhausting. I think that's, you know, that's the hardest part, is knowing that this is a marathon and not a sprint, and being okay with that distance.
Yeah.
So I hate running marathons, but anyway, Michael, I appreciate you coming on. I hope the guests got a lot of value. We talked a lot on this, and drove into a lot of different things, but I'm excited about what you guys are building. We didn't even talk about your teams that you're recruiting, so we'll have to do another episode sometime about that. But you guys are doing big things within Real.
Yep.
Bringing a lot of teams over, large teams out of California, which is awesome.
Yep.
And I'm excited to see your expansion over the next few months. So, if people want to follow you, Michael Perry 123
gang,
Michael Perry 123 on Instagram, and the Perry Group. If they're looking to buy or sell in Real in Salt Lake, is it just theperrygroup.com? What's your guys' website?
Theperry.group, anywhere in Utah. Got you.
Perry.group, 85-person team. They'll help you out. So appreciate you, man. Until
Thank
next
you.
time, catch you guys later.
Don't listen to people who lose, or you'll do the same. Stop talking to people who don't give a what you saying. Stop spending your money on weed, go hop on a plane. Stop pointing the finger and start taking some of the blame. Let me put you on game. Control your emotions, most of the time it's really not worth it. Don't be ashamed and beat yourself up for not being perfect.